Hi everyone, this is Dr. Murlidhar Dunna. Today in this video, I am going to explain you the difference between provision and reserve. As we all are aware that businessmen prepare their accounts on the basis of going concern concept. What do you mean by this? The going concern concept is nothing but it's a men may come and men may go, but the company goes on forever. Means they are preparing accounts on the basis of going concern concept, assuming that their business will continue for an indefinite period of time. It will continue forever. Therefore, in order to ascertain the net profit of business every year, what they do is the businessmen not only consider current contingencies but also future contingencies, the future uncertainties. In reality, the provision and reserve are the terms that are actually related to future needs. But there are some differences between provision and reserve. So I am going to discuss the difference between provision and reserve in this video. The first and foremost, what is the meaning of provision and reserve? The meaning of reserve is nothing but it is a part of some profit. Keep it aside for future contingencies, also known as future uncertainties. Coming back to the provision is nothing but it is also some amount charged against profit to meet future loss and liability. The main meaning of provision is it is also charged against the profit to meet future loss and liability, whereas reserve to meet future contingencies. The second point I would like to tell you that what is the main objective. The main objective, as I said earlier, to meet the future need to improve the financial position of the firm, whereas provision to cover uncertain losses and liabilities in future. Coming back to the what is the accounting treatment, the provision and reserve accounting treatments are different. The first I'm going to discuss that reserve, the accounting treatment. It is recorded is the debit item of profit and loss appropriation account and liabilities item in the balance sheet. Whereas provision, it is recorded as a debit item of profit and loss account and assets item of balance sheet. Then coming back to the what is the profit requirement. The reserve requires adequate profits in our profit and loss account or income statement. Whereas provision, it doesn't require any amount of profit and it can be also created in the case of loss also. Again, I'm going to tell you, reserve can be created if you have a adequate and sufficient profits in your statement, profit and loss account or income statement. Whereas provision, whether even if you get a loss, you have to create provision. Then, what about the dividend payment? Can we utilize reserve amount as a dividend payment or can we utilize provision amount as a distribution of dividend? The reserve can be distributed as a dividend, whereas provision can't be used for distribution as dividend because provision created for specific purpose. We have to use that for specific purpose only. What are the main examples? As far as reserve is concerned, general reserve, reserve for expansion, dividend equalization reserve, debenture redemption reserve, investment fluctuation reserve, all these are the examples of reserves. Whereas provision for depreciation, provision for doubtful debts, provision for taxation, provision for repairs, all these things are meant for the provisions. We have to utilize for that purpose only. We should not utilize this provision for any other purpose except as per mentioned. The other thing I would like to mention is mode of creation. Just now, I would like to tell you that the reserve is debiting profit and loss appropriation account, whereas provision it is debiting by profit and loss account. See how we have to presentation in the balance sheet. The reserves are shown under the head reserves and surplus as the bonus capital or shareholders fund and liable on the liability side of the balance sheet. So reserves we have to show it in the liability side of the balance sheet, whereas provision always shown on the liability side as a current liability, or we have to reduce from that current assets. If it is a provision for bad debts, we have to deduct from the debtors. Similarly, provision for taxation, we have to mention it as a current liability. Like that, we need to mention in the balance sheet. Right. Then what is the utilization? Reserves can be used or to meet any loss or any liability, because the reserves are meant for future contingencies, future uncertainties. The name itself indicates we have to keep some amount aside from our profit and loss account. We have to utilize reserve for any purpose. Whereas provision, it has to be utilized for specific purpose what we have created, what we have mentioned. For example, provision for depreciation we need to use for purchasing assets only. Means provision for depreciation are used for specific that depreciation purpose only. Provision for bad debts, we have to clear the bad debts, we have to use that provision only. Like that. Then what is the necessity? Right, the reserve, it is not mandatory to create reserves. They are only created when the company has a surplus profits. Reserve is not mandatory, it's not compulsory to create reserve. But what we need to do is, the main objective of reserve is to keep some amount for future contingencies. For that purpose we are going to create the reserves. But provision, it is a mandatory to create provisions as per various laws. Again, I'm going to tell you, the convention of conservatism is there. That is meant, that's what it implies, what it represents, that provide for all possible losses, don't anticipate profits. That on the basis of convention of conservatism, we are making provisions. Provision is a provide for possible loss in the future. So provision is mandatory to create provisions as per the various laws. Thank you. Thank you, one and all, for watching. And please like, share, comment, and subscribe for more updates. Thank you. Thank you so much.